Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being here. I am so deeply appreciative of everybody who joins because then I get to share some ideas that I find inspiring with you ladies. So let's jump in. Parshas Korach, and again, just to remind everybody that I know in America you're on Parshas Shlach, which we talked about last week, and we're going to be talking about this week Parshas Korach, which you're going to be reading in shul next week. So I know it could be a little bit confusing right now, but Be'ez Hashem, we can hang in there until Matos Masai when there will be again global unity. We will all be on the same parsha again. Parshas Korach. Thank you so much. So I'm actually going to preface our dive into Korach by sharing with you some inspiring words that I read in the Rabbeinu Yona's commentary on Mishlei. Now, the Rabbeinu Yona's commentary on Mishlei is a foundational text in Jewish Hashkafa. The Rabbeinu Yona was a Rishain, and in fact, his shita in Emuna and Bitachon, Rav Taubas itself, would bring down that there's the Rabbeinu Yona and there's Rashi, and these are two of the original, the two of the fundamental shitas, two opinions in how we hold according to Emunah B'tachon. And so Rabbeinu Yona is considered an absolute authority. Okay, so this is Mishlei Perek Gimel, and so it's like this: Pasuk Gimel, Perek Gimel, chapter 3, verse 3. Chesed ve'emes al yazvucha. Kindness, the trait of loving kindness and truth should never leave you. So I'm going to read to you. I'm not going to burden the community with the Hebrew text. I'm just going to give a free translation. Anything that's missing in the translation is my responsibility. Okay, I'm going to translate as accurately as I can. Okay, kindness and truth should never leave you. Here, the author of Mishlei is Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest of all men, who HaKadosh Baruch Hu blessed him with wisdom. And in Sefer Mishlei, he brings down his instructions for living a Torah life and for avodas Hashem, for how to serve Hashem. Well, that's what we're all in this lifetime for. And I know that's what you're all joining me together for, to learn how to serve Hashem. So let's see what the Rabbeinu Yona has to say about chesed ve'emes. As we're going to see, there are two entire areas of avodas Hashem that are completely, almost opposite to each other. Now he talks about the ways of serving Kadosh Baruch Hu, and he opens with a warning about these traits, chesed and emes. Chesed includes all of the elevated character traits, and emes includes the intellectual traits. Okay, for that we love in our mind, how we think about things, our cognitive traits. The first one, which is chesed, is that we should put our whole desire and our effort to do kindness and to do good for people, to do good for them with our money and with our physical effort, to give them pleasure, to make them nachas ruach, to give them, that means to make them a sense of well-being, to bring people a sense of well-being, and to seek out peace for our fellow brethren, and to seek out their good, and to desire their greatness, and to desire their elevation and their goodness. And this also includes to keep away from any kind of damage in deed or speech. That is also included in chesed. And in this character trait is cruelty and destructiveness and hatred and jealousy. Rahman al-Islam, may Hashem save us. Any kind of lording it over other people that is not in the way that they would like or as they would desire. and the union of truth. So all of that is included in chesed. In seeking chesed is also that we should avoid any kinds of cruelty or jealousy or anything that would damage other people. And what's this? The union of truth. Truth is that we should not say about something that's bad that it's good, and we should not say about something good that it's bad, and we should not flatter people, but we should act with truth, and we should love and honor the tzaddikim, the righteous, and we should desire the low, to bring low the Rishayim and those people who do bad. And this is not included in the midah of chesed. It's an entirely different category of character traits. Chesed is all of this do-gooding, right? Doing good doing and avoiding damage to other people. And emes is seeking that those that are right and true should be elevated, and being able to point out what is wrong, calling out evil, and even desiring that those who act in low ways should be brought low. And in truth, included in this midah of emes, sheyishpat ben bnei adam, that there should actually be judgment between people. All of a sudden, the trait of holding the capacity of being able to make a to judge in our mind what is appropriate and what is not, to be discerning. Okay, we're not going to call it judgmentalism, we're going to call it discernment. But the capacity to discern between those people who are doing the right things and those people who are not doing the right things. That we shouldn't show honor to somebody who is that if there's a judgment going on and someone there's actions that need to be discerned, whether it's right or wrong. If somebody is highly honorable, or if we happen to like them a lot, that shouldn't color our judgment about whether this behavior is right or wrong. And wherever there's a fight or a machlokes, yatzik et tzaddik v'yirashia et harasha. We should say that the tzaddik is a tzaddik and that the rasha is a rasha. And so Chazal say, what happens if a Talmud is sitting before his Rav and he sees that the Rav is judging favorably the poor man and he is judging guiltily the wealthy man, but maybe it's not right, meaning he's giving a favorable judgment to the poor person because he's poor, rather than judging the case according to what should be right and wrong. Maybe he should stay quiet. Maybe the Talmud should stay quiet and not say something to his great Rebbe, who is potentially changing the judgment and trying to favor somebody, even though it might look like he's just being kind to this person. But this is the midah of emes we're talking about over here. Talmud loymar midvar sheker tirchok, as it says in Shmos. The Torah says, distance yourself from falsehood. And Chazal say in Soita, there are 4 groups of people that will not greet Mashiach. Those who are flatterers, those who are liars, those who are leitzim, those who are mockers, and those who speak lashon hara. And it says, one who's matzdik Rasha, u'marshia tzaddik to'avas Hashem gam shnehem. A person who makes the Rasha into a tzaddik, and a person who makes the tzaddik into a Rasha, meaning he says that the tzaddik is a Rasha, and he says that the Rasha is a tzaddik. Whether he does either of these, it's a to'eva to Hashem. Hashem does not want this. Hashem desires the truth. Hashem wants the truth to be known, and Hashem wants the character, the real character of the players, to be seen for what they are. As it says, Doivesh Karim, Lo Yikain Leneged Einai in Tehillim, those who speak, one who speaks falsehood will not dwell before me. Okay. This is the Rabbeinu Yaina again. Just going back to the original sources often can open up our eyes and help us to see that sometimes there may be diversions. Uh, we may have diverted from the way that we're supposed to look at what's going on. And I remember many years ago, um, I had a family member in my home, and she left a very expensive watch on a bedside table. And I called somebody to come and help me move a certain wardrobe. I'd bought a wardrobe from somebody, and they were coming to put it together in my home, and they sent a a non-Jewish worker who was an illegal worker to come and put this cupboard together in my room. And that non-Jewish illegal worker stole this relative's very expensive watch. And so I was concerned. Lashon hara, am I going to get this person into trouble by speaking to the police about the fact that there was this stolen watch? But this relative would only be able to get her insurance money if there was a police claim made. And so I spoke to one person who was like, no, it's Lashon hara, you can't get that person into trouble. So it's a different Rav, and he said, you absolutely have to go to the authorities. It's not okay. And you have to go and make a claim about it against this person. And it's absolutely right that your relative is able to claim back the money. And that second Rav had more authority than the first Rav. And so I did make that claim. But these things, um, we have to ask Das Torah. Okay, we do need to ask Das Torah. Of course, you have to ask Das Torah, and we must also be aware that looking at everybody with a good eye is actually a lot of the time is going to get us into very deep waters and into a lot of trouble. Unfortunately, over the last few months, women have talked to me about situations that they're in where somebody that they trusted, somebody they trusted very, very deeply in their family circle, ended up abusing them and their children. And this was somebody who they had turned a blind eye to all kinds of negative behaviors over the years. And then this person, this negative person, just turned around and without any rahmanas and with a tremendous cruelty, turned against them. And these could be parents, these could be spouses who have turned against children and wives who were devoted to them for a lifetime, and then have turned around and acted incredibly cruelly. And we have to recognize that there are such people among us, and we have to begin to recognize and call out bad behavior. We have to discern. We have to begin to see when people are behaving badly, and we have to be prepared to call bad behavior what it is. And it's all very well to give somebody one chance, two chances, but if somebody shows you who they are, we need to at least be choshesh. We need to at least look after ourselves, as it says, kabdehu v'chashdehu. Honor him, but suspect him. And if a person has begun to act in ways that are inappropriate and potentially cruel, we need to ask ourselves, okay, how could I protect myself from such a person, even if they are in my family circle? And it hurts a lot to say those words. It hurts a lot to even think about that. But you know what? If such a person is in your family circle, and the day would come where it's either them or you, such a person will choose themselves. And your years of dedication, you may think they're going to recognize them, but they don't. Rav Shlomo Freifeld, Zechet Tzaddik Livrocha, of Yeshivas Shar Yashuv, who understood so deeply how broken people can be and how the necessity to really connect to a person in order to bring him back to Torah and true avodas Hashem. He understood how twisted certain character traits can be. And once he was looking for a Rebbe for one of his chadarim, and he interviewed various people to come, and one particular man came to interview for the position of a an educator of a Rebbe in his cheder. He came in with the interviewee came in with his young son. And Rav Shlomo Freifeld welcomed him and welcomed the young son. And he began to talk to the father about the young son who was with him. The father, who was interviewing, said, "Oh, this son, he's okay, but my older son, he's this and he's that." And he spoke glowingly about the older son. Rav Shlomo tried to bring the conversation back to the younger son who was present. And the father again, over and over, changed the tension and the focus back to his other son, who was so much more in so many ways. After they left, after the interview, Rav Shlomo said to his attendant, an assistant, he said, "I don't want him to work for us. That man is a Rasha. He's wicked. He had the ability to give attention to his younger son when he was here. And he kept on turning the attention back to his older son because he thought that was going to give him more glory. I don't want him working for us. That's not the kind of person. That's a Rasha." Rav Shlomo Freifeld was not afraid to call out that kind of gaiva and that kind of being willing to be cruel to one's own child as being a Rasha. And many of us can learn from that kind of willingness of Rav Shlomo Freifeld to be less tolerant of cruel behavior that is cruel to our children, to people's children, to members of our community. So I'm going to dive now with that in mind into the words of Rav Shlomo of Reb Asher, where he talks about Korach and Amalek. And here he says that one of the hardest elements to deal with in Klal Yisrael is not just those who do aveiros themselves, but those who do aveiros and they hurt other people. And I did touch on this point last year. It became, I'm aware of that, but I'm going to bring out a slightly different element, even though this was the original Torah of Rasha that I also talked about last year. Yeravam ben Nevat was a chayte umachti es rabim. He did aveiros, but he also brought other people to doing aveiros. And that's how his name stayed throughout Klal Yisrael as a person who brought terrible aveiros to Klal Yisrael. When we see people who are willing to bring other people to do aveiros, as long as they end up feeling good about themselves. A woman came crying to me today that her husband is buying their child an iPhone and allowing the child to watch all kinds of negative things, all kinds of films, and all kinds of. She said, "Why?" She said, "How could he not think about the spiritual fallout by giving our 15-year-old child an iPhone? Why is he doing that?" And through conversation and understanding more about how this father is acting within the family, became clear that he doesn't actually care about his daughter, but he wants to buy his daughter's favor. He wants to be on her good side. He wants to turn his child against her own mother. And so through buying the child an iPhone, he can buy his daughter's attention. This is very, very sick. And this is the actions of a Rasha. I'm not going to say the person is a Rasha, but the actions are actions of a Rasha. And we have to understand that these kinds of things are happening all around the world, where people who should be caring about other people are not caring about other people, but instead they're caring about themselves, just as this father who couldn't stop bragging about his older son, even though it was at the expense of the feeling and the self-esteem and the sense of worth of his young son who was sitting there. And so, just as there is in holiness, there is in Tuma. There is in the opposite, Chas v'shalom. We have, says Rav Asher, we have a tzaddik. It's called a tzaddik in pelts. A tzaddik who's wrapped himself in his own fur, his own holiness, and he's only concerned with his own holiness, but he doesn't care to give of other people the benefit of his holiness. And you have a tzaddik, such as Reb Asher, such as the Rabbeinu Yonah and Mishnah, such as the Shlomo Freifeld, that their main concern is to give of their spirit and of their deeds to other people. Reb Asher was the giant of Chesed in his generation, and arguably people who are familiar with the history of the last 100 years in Eretz Yisrael and in Yerushalayim, and of the growth of Chesed organizations. Reb Asher was the trailblazer of Chesed in Yerushalayim 70, 80 years ago. He would be seen schlepping bags of potatoes and carrots and onions on his shoulders, taking them to poor people, organizing delivery of fridges to people who didn't have fridges in their homes. He wasn't only an incredible tzaddik and master of Jewish thought and hidden Jewish thought, but he was a tremendous outpouring of love from his heart to every Jew. And then you have those tzaddikim who are, as it's called in the Sifrei Hasidus, they are a neshama klalis. They have the souls that include within them the souls of all Klal Yisrael, and they draw down and they give out to all Klal Yisrael from their influence. And so it is on the side of Tuma, Ches v'Shalom. You have a Rasha who just does averos for himself. He doesn't care about other people. He just keeps himself to himself. And halavai, that the wicked people that we have who are trying to uproot all the Kedusha and Chaya in Eretz Yisrael, halavai, they would just keep their wickedness to themselves. That's not what's happening. We could still bear, says Reb Asher, we could still bear somebody who merely does averos to himself, but he's not trying to bring wickedness upon other people. But then you have the Rishayim, that they're just busy keeping other people. They want to spread their evil because it makes them look good for whatever reason. They have an inyan that it makes them feel good. It makes them look good. They have control. And these are the students of Yerovam ben Nevat. And these are the people we have to fight against. Amalek, he was the signature evil and the sitna till today. He did averos and he tried to bring all of the nations around against Klal Yisrael. And Chazal liken him to one who jumps into a boiling hot bath, and then he forged the path after which everybody else could come and jump into that path. Before then, there was an awe surrounding Klal Yisrael, an aura of tremendous awe that spread around Klal Yisrael that nobody felt they could dare to touch Klal Yisrael, which Amalek burst through that. And if you want to know what was the power of Amalek, it was his leitzanis, his meed of mockery. Now we met this in the words of Rabbeinu Yonah on Mishlei, that there are 4 groups of people that will never greet Mashiach, and one of them is the leitzanim, those who make a mockery of everything that is holy. The mockery of Amalek, that he would laugh and curse Klal Yisrael in the eyes of the people, that is what opened up the door. And the Baal HaTurim in the Parsha makes an association between Amalek and Korach. That the Torah calls both of them hachatoim, these sinners, because Korach also came with the power of leitzanis, and he what does it say? How does translate? I'm trying to translate this word into English. He was madbik. If something is, you can make some. If you can give somebody else a disease like the flu, it's contagious. Okay, so this leitzanis, laughing at other people, is very contagious, and he wanted to bring it to all of the people, to the whole nation, because that is the nature of somebody who has this character trait of laughing and mocking. And it spreads like fire through dry grasses. And that brings these people to Gehinnom. What is the difference between good-hearted banter and leitzanis? because this is one of the red flags that we can see with people who are cruel. Here we're talking about understanding the behavior that would set people apart. We're talking about having discernment. How can we discern between a Rasha and a tzaddik? They both may be doing good things. Korach was involved in all kinds of mitzvahs, and he spoke up. No, we want to learn Torah, and a room's filled with Sfarim, because of course we want to learn Torah. So he was very concerned with learning. But just why do we need this little mezuzah on the door if we have so many Sfarim? So, his mockery of the mitzvah maybe was outweighed by the fact that he was learning so much Torah. We could be confused by people who seem to be doing so much good. And we might just brush off their mockery and say, well, they're doing so much good. So what are some of the ways that we can tell if we need to exercise our discernment with such a person, and just be aware that this may not be a completely safe person, and we may need to actually just notice and keep our eyes and ears open. So number one, what we learned from the story of Rav Shlomo Freifeld, that if a person is prepared to ignore one child and make another one great at the expense of the child, that is cruelty, and that is a Rasha. If somebody in your home is prepared to speak good about one of your children while making the other children feel small, this is not okay. Don't allow it. Stand up for your children. This is not okay. Of course, if it's the child's bar mitzvah, you want to celebrate that child, if it's their birthday. But if one is going to invalidate a child at the expense of another, and try and compare children, this is going to be very destructive. Reb Shlomo Freifeld called this out as the actions of a Rasha. And going back to the leitzonis aspect over here, how can we tell the difference if a person is just good-heartedly making a little bit of fun that really isn't any problem, or if a person is actually, in a quite sinister, underhanded way, putting people down in order to lift themselves up? There's actually one very easy way to find out, and that is, can they take a good dose of their own medicine? If they are happy to make jokes about other people and put other people down, and then they say, oh, I was only joking, I didn't mean it, don't take it so seriously, you are so sensitive. If that's what happens when they make jokes about you, but if you ever make a joke about them, all of a sudden, it's as if you have crossed a red line that may not ever be crossed. If you find that there are two standards, one standard for them and one standard for everybody else, you've just noticed that this is leitzonis. If a person puts down a mother in front of her family, which I hear people do this happens, lowering the mother in the eyes of her children, let's just understand that this is both cruel and leitzonis. It's achzarius, it's cruelty, and it's also mockery. There is almost nothing more cruel than taking children away from their mother. And any person who lowers a mother in the eyes of her family and denies her goodness and puts her down or mocks her in any way, invalidates her or makes her small, shows that they have no sensitivity for holiness and that they have cruelty in their hearts. If a person takes a good dose of their own medicine, if if you have a good friend and you can tease them and they can tease you, and it never goes into anything too personal, but even if it does, but they could just take it just the same as they give it, okay? And so there's a natural flow, and there's an easiness, and there's a mutual respect that is not altered by a little bit of fun teasing that is in a very good-natured way. But if, as I said before, you discern that they do not take a good dose of that medicine themselves, and that if anybody dares to tease them or make a little mockery of something that they did, all of a sudden, when they can call out other people for being hypersensitive, but their own hypersensitivity, is absolutely not up for debate, you have just witnessed a massive red flag for mockery, leitzanus, destructive behavior, and cruelty. And even if this is a member of our family, we need to be discerning because our children, our family is at stake. And if they're prepared to do that, who knows what else they're prepared to do? And we need to be prepared to call out actions as being the actions of to be evil, to be wicked. Those are not things that should be taking place in our family. We can bring them up. If they don't want to hear, we can bring them up in therapy. We can take them to a Rav. We can talk to a Rav about it. We can create a dialogue about it. We can say, this is not okay. And then we can watch and see what happens when we start referring to this behavior as being not okay. Are we then do we then become the victim of more mockery? Does it make a difference? Does the person show a genuine contrite nature and take responsibility for having said something not good? Or do they double down and continue calling us too sensitive and not knowing, not knowing the difference between a little joke? It's important that we know it for ourselves. It's important that we know it for our children. It's important that we know it for our communities. It's important that we show up and call righteous acts what they are, but also call evil acts what they are as well, and not tolerate bullying and cruelty and minimizing those who really need to be helped to feel as great as they can. One of the primary reasons why women are so confused about their worth and minimize themselves and don't prioritize their health care is because people have been putting them down throughout their lives. And they don't even feel that they have a right to take care of themselves. They feel that taking care of their health is selfish or egotistical. And we have to turn this around. We have to create an environment where women are safe, where children are safe to take care of themselves and to be free of ridicule and of mockery, and where children are safe in their own homes, not to be ignored, not to be compared. Emotional safety is one of the most important bedrocks in our homes, and prevent children from going elsewhere to get the kind of validation that they seek and that they need. So I've said quite a lot of heavy things today. I'm going to check the chat and see if anybody has anything to add or to ask. No, I don't see anybody asking anything. Okay, I hope you're not just shocked out of your wits here. Okay, if anybody wants to unmute and ask or add anything, I'm always really delighted to hear everybody and what you have to say. Anybody want to unmute? Okay, just want to say thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your being part of this community, and wishing everybody a discerning Shabbos, a Shabbos of recognizing that we live in a holy community, and most of Klal Yisrael is attached to holiness and goodness and busy doing chesed and kindness and speaking words of truth. And it's certainly a small minority that are acting in the ways that we had to talk about today. But if we don't call out those acts, then we're endangering the holy majority.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to put myself on the camera off. Well, no, what if you're, okay, like what if you have a friend, let's say, who's being negative and you want to be supportive to them because you don't want to not be their friend, but they're really not doing the right thing and they can't be makabel criticism, like they're always talking badly about their husband or they're talking badly about some of their kids or some of the people their friends have married, like just things that you think are like, it's not okay to say what they said, but they can't take the criticism and you want to kind of distance yourself from them. But at the same time, they're going through a hard time because they don't have a great marriage and you're trying to be supportive. So do you hear what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to abandon them.
So first of all, there are two parts to this. One question would be, do they have anybody else? Are they like just negative blabbing to everybody in their lives always and there's no limit to it? Or are you one of the only people that they can really let it all out to the way that they're feeling it?
Yeah, I think I'm one of the only people.
Okay, so the Chafetz Chaim does say in Hilchos Lashon Hara that everybody needs at least one person that they can really pour out their hearts to. And so it's a mitzvah to support a person, to actually give them the safe space to give it all out. That doesn't mean you have to listen more than you can tolerate. All right. So you could say, look, I have half an hour for this.
Well,
And if
no, they have somebody else, like they have some kind of healer or therapist that they share with, but I'm the friend.
Okay, again, they may be getting guidance from the therapist, but they may need another listening ear that just feels like a safe place. From my years of experience of women going through challenging relationships, a lot of times women need to talk about it over and over and over again until they get it out of their system. It's actually part of the process of healing, being able to talk about it over and over again. Just want you to know that. And if you can be a friend and listen to it, yes, it might sound like a lot of negativity, but actually the process of healing, because sometimes there's so much disbelief about what I actually had to go through this, and that through talking through it a number of times, we can create a new narrative in our mind and somehow begin to see it in a different way. It may be, I don't know if that's the case, but it may be that you could be giving her the opportunity to have a different narrative about it and see herself as not so much as the victim, but maybe as being someone who can come through this a different way. That's one aspect of it, is that it's a chesed to listen to somebody to a degree, yeah, to a degree that you can tolerate it. But also, the Chafetz Chaim says, even if we had to speak Lashon Hara to Elis, which probably this is, if we can end on a positive note. And it doesn't have to be positive about the people who may be really challenging in her life, but positive about herself. You're going to do this. I believe in you. I know Hashem is showing up for you. If you can bring the conversation at the
I hear
end
that.
on a positive note about your belief in her, and maybe even get her to speak out for herself. Okay, what's something good that you can do for yourself? What can you look forward to in your life? Helping her to see she may not have something so positive she can look forward to in her marriage or with her children, but maybe within herself, what is it that you can do for yourself that's positive? I see so much good in you. As a friend, you can see the good in her. Maybe if you can make most of the greatness I see in you, the goodness I see in you. She can't even see the goodness in you. That's what a friend can do. And if you end on that note,
Okay.
and
So
even,
stick with the
yes,
positive.
stick with
Okay.
that yeah. And
Thank
only
you
do what
so
you can manage. It doesn't mean that you have to listen to more than you can tolerate. If it
no,
makes
right,
you,
because at a certain point it brings you down. It's
yeah.
like,
So be sensitive to yourself as well. Don't take more than you
okay,
can.
great.
Okay.
Have a good Shabbos,
And you the Sabbath.
everybody.
Stay Christian. Thanks for
Okay,
asking.
thank you. Bye-bye.
Great. Anyone else want to unmute or ask or add something? Love to hear from everybody if you have something to add. Okay. Love to everybody. Have a wonderful Shabbos. Besaros Tovos.